There's one thing that I want to bring up, though. I want to actually kind of have a discussion about, and it's something that's kind of been making its rounds. And I feel like this happens. I don't say like it happens. I know it happens, but it happens more in like conversation. If you're, making your kind of your trips, your rounds around the competitive scene when you're traveling or you're just hitting tournaments, this conversation at some point happens. But it's making its rounds now on like your subreddits and on Twitter and such is what it is. So now everybody gets to see it. Everybody that gets to just see that on their timelines get to kind of get involved in. So it becomes a grander kind of conversation. And it's the talk about the new buzzword, neutral skip.
So
right? Neutral skip. What is neutral skip, Static? Tell me.
Well, this topic comes up actually more often than you think, and it probably shows up maybe, how do I say, once a week in Chris G's stream, where somebody will ask him, where do you think, and then, like maybe the past month, like, where do you think these games are going with how aggressive they are? Do you think these games should be aggressive? And it's like every week, it was like Tekken's Heat Gauge, and then Wild Assault, and then this thing, and then with Granblue and their mana stuff, whatever it's called, and then other games, and it's like, yeah, it kind of is a buzzword. Neutral skip to me is whatever is just sort of, how do I say, it's almost like a game is rewarding. Oh, Drive Rush is another one. A game is rewarding rush down play rather than rewarding sort of defensive play. That to me is a neutral skip. For me, neutral skip though would be going through fireballs willy-nilly without any type of repercussion. That to me is a neutral skip. Like a Bionic Arm or a Marvel type of style where it's like, no risk. Thank you, no risk. But I mean, Bionic Arm.
No risk, no thought. Unga bunga, right? Yeah. Virgil press C. It's just a dub, right? Don't even think about it.
You're in the EX tackle. That was like -2. And then you can just EX headbutt invincible right after. Like,
so some more examples of it. So the reason this got brought up is because this is a tweet that's been going around right now at this point. It's got about 150,000 views on it. This is from, originally it was from a bad idea on Twitter, talking about noticing that recent fighting games are having a paradigm shift towards aggressive mechanics. Drive Rush, Strive's Wild Assault, Granblue's Rising's Raging Chain, and even Tekken 8's new Heat system, right? We're moving past the age of footsies and neutrals and into the age of Unga. So, for translation, we're moving past the idea of having a more thoughtful dance of, you press one button, I'm pressing this, right? Like we're trying to play our spacing game. We're trying to see who can footsie each other, right? Get our jabs in, go for the hook, go for the haymaker, whatever it may be, and going into the age of Unga. Unga meaning Unga Bunga, meaning I'm not thinking, I'm just going to press buttons and I win, right? Gorilla, puff my chest. That's the running gag. The Leos, right? The Leos or whatever. The Leo Unga Bunga, I'm gonna do whatever stance change, overhead, I win, right? But that's just being applied universally. So this was then responded by Infilament on Twitter, stating, I regret to inform you that there's never been an age of footsies and neutral. ST Vega wall dive, Third Strike Makoto dash / Yuri and tackle, Aegis, Yun, Genengine, CVS2, roll cancel, Street Fighter 4's Viper, Fuerte, Seth, Jaguar kick, EX lunge, Marvel 3 Virgil sword. They're flying at you in every game. Right, so it's just talking about like the idea that like, this idea that there's been a perfect game of just footsies, or there's been a history of it, when in fact it isn't really so black and white like that. Like it isn't really true. Like there's always like, I don't know what it is. It's just like I said, the sky is blue. The grass will be green. Fighting games will always have a level of bullshit in them. Always, no matter what.
If I may, I feel like this is definitely this is something we're going to talk about like at the end of this decade, because the decade prior, from 2010 to now, has been all about the comeback mechanic.
Yes.
The
That was
comeback
the big thing,
mechanic
right?
was the biggest topic. You had the
Your X Factors, your Rage Arts, your
Right,
Ultra
right.
combos.
Ultra
right?
combos
Like you had,
were the start. Yep.
Mhm.
Because think about it, you had Marvel 2, which came out, and that was no comeback mechanic. You had the Third Strike with the parry. You had now we're talking neutral skip. You've got those games have their things, of course. But then you get to freaking Marvel 3 with the X Factors. You get to Street Fighter Cross Tekken with Pandora was supposed to be, but no.
But it just didn't.
You
work
have
out.
super
No,
combos, like level 3 combos that do like 60% damage or something. And you go on and go on and go on, and then you get to now, and it's like, well, Street Fighter 4 had its neutral skip, but we never talked about it because it's like you have a vortex, and the vortex is what gets most of the coverage. So like we're seeing now, like for me, the biggest example is definitely the Guilty Gear part of it with those wild assaults. I think those are actually a problem in the game because it's like these characters are using something that takes away. It's a whole busted dumb mechanic. It takes away the burst from the other player, and then you have to use it, and then it's jump cancelable. It has so many different priorities out of it, and it takes away a defensive tool that your character can use, and it takes away from the neutral part of the game, where there's not even dead angles in the game right now. And then if you do the force, what's the circle?
The flex shield. The flex shield or FD.
Still not very good, because if the person knows you're going to deflect shield, they have a move that can just still get back in there. And it's like, I just wasted bar. And then Dragon Ball is the biggest neutral skip game if you want to talk about neutral skip. So that could have also been the one that brought it up in 2018, with just going through fireballs with the dash. Listen, you can take that and do what you want to say. Say what you want to say.
Well, what I was gonna bring up is just it's kind of the idea of like, was basically a lot of what you said is what I was gonna bring up is that's kind of an illusion. Like even if you take it as far back as Street Fighter 2, like Street Fighter 2, you had like he stated like right, ST Vega, right? Left and right wall jumps, right? Like that shit was bullshit, right? That was
just saw a tweet about it.
It was the truth. That was always bullshit. Even at the simplest level, there's it just vastly emphasized how different characters play. My big thing is when it comes to like core mechanics, right? Because I feel like we're getting a little confused as to like some of the mechanics in the game that are, especially the universal ones. Like you said, like your wild assaults, your drive rushes, your parries, your X Factors, shield and uni and such, right? Those are all mechanics that are just like part of the core essence of how the game is being played, and like all characters have access to. Some characters have it better, right? Some wild assaults are better for certain characters, much more beneficial to certain characters than others. Sure, there's a universal kind of like a level, a plateau of, like you said, it's still effective because it can do X, Y, and Z across the board. But for some characters, it's even better because maybe they're invincible on Wake Up, maybe they needed a reversal. Combo extenders, etc., right? My main thing when it comes to these neutral skips is that as long as if these mechanics allow players to not be pigeonholed into just the same reactions or responses every time, I think that makes it a great experience, in my opinion. Is it still bullshit? Yes, it's not going to be perfect, because no fighting game is going to be perfect, not even in neutral. If you had the most neutral fighting game ever, like neutral-based fighting game ever, and that's what people wanted, motherfuckers will be playing more Virtual Fighter than anything else. But like that's the thing that like it trips me out, because like if you want to look at a game that is just pure footsie, purely about that, there is some bullshit, because I know Akira has like unblockables and shit, like self-unblockables or some shit like that. I don't know if that's still a thing now, but cats are like, they be playing Virtual fucking Fighter, man. If that's what you want, it's just this, a lot of this. And it's because I think there's just like a misunderstanding between the core mechanics and the neutral skipping. Like, you still need to like, especially at a high level, like, there is stuff to abuse. Yes, like you were talking about even like Street Fighter 4, even during that era, that was option select fighter for, right? Jokingly after a while, because after a while there were just so many situations that the game was able to just play out for you, but even at a high level you had to be able to execute on, right? That was like the barrier to it, was being able to execute on. Not 100% all the time. Like Capri was pretty brain dead. She kind of neutral skipped a lot, right? She could do that. I'm about to say, I'm like, I know you're not looking around, because I'm like, you were a DiCaprio player. I know you can attest to that. But yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, regardless, yeah, she's right there on your wall. But like, yeah, these mechanics, I feel like they're just getting misconstrued a little bit there as to being neutral skips, like DI, and like a drive rush and such. Like, I don't think they're neutral skips. They're just the new. I say it's rush like they're just the new foot. They're the new footsies.
It's the new move in without too much risk. Like, it's the.
I mean,
yeah.
Even in Street Fighter, blocking is a risk because you're killing the drive gauge, which is your resource, right? The same deal with Wild Assault. You're killing the burst gauge, a resource on your opponent. So it feels more offensive because sometimes blocking just isn't an answer. Like, you just have to throw something out to check the drive rush, right? You just have to, even if it doesn't seem like the best. And blocking is the safest. You might just have to press a button and put yourself out there in order to prevent a drive rush from happening from a DJ or whoever, right? Whoever can abuse it.
Oh, it's jury. It's jury. Definitely jury.
Or jury. Whatever. You know, everyone says DJ, but I'm going with DJ. But yeah, so I don't think games are becoming more neutral. Like, they're just skipping neutral board. Some things are bullshit. Don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not gonna defend all of them and say like they're perfect. Some of them are extremely, kind of lopsided here. But I think that's just in tune with the game's design. Because remember, these developers, they're trying to get new people in every iteration, every version of the game. Rising, right? Just drop. They're trying to get new people in. All the new stuff that they've added into it, sure, they've taken feedback from the competitive community about things like the tech windows and all that, right? But like Tekken 8 with the heat system, to be able to have access to more damaging combos or more ways to be able to have different characters that aren't necessarily fast, or have that ability to be able to chain, certain situations, now have a universal mechanic that allows them to do that, opens up the window for more players to have more ways to A, express themselves, and B, have fun playing it, right? There are games at the end of the day, they're trying, they want to sell units, right? That's their goal. But for the competitive side, that's really where my question is going to come to you guys, the listeners. Do you think that with developers trying to bring new people in, with that in mind, do you think there are more neutral skip mechanics in the current generation than the older games, i.e. like all the examples Static just gave? Wild Assaults, your DIs, DRs, your parries, your shield mechanics, your RCs, the YRCs as well, even, was kind of a bit of a wild neutral skip, right? In Xrd. You can go as far back as Street Fighter 4 if you want. Do you think there are more of those now than there have been before? Or do you think the mechanics are just, kind of being a little construed as to being the new neutral versus just the neutral skip?
I think also, I'm going to sort of piggyback off of that. Like, different sort of, I know a lot of people complained about FADCs. They did make them a lot unsafer when they did happen, after like a bunch of iterations. But I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. I basically grew in my competitive nature in that aspect, where it did give you bad habits. And these, I feel like, not these, because I don't want to usually use neutral skip either. I guess people are just mad that their character can go from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen very fast. Granted, when I was Chun-Li in Street Fighter 4 and people threw fireballs, I got either rage quits or a lot of people messaging me because Ryu and Ken, when they threw a fireball, their little hands were all the way out there. So from full screen, I can do Ultra 1 from the full screen, and it hits them. It goes through their fireball. I'm sorry, but your hands were out there. But at the same time, yeah, I can understand if people want to complain about that. And But what about Hazanshu? I can flip over a fireball if I'm at a range. Like if you threw the fireball,
Is that a neutral skip?
You know,
I don't know.
Technically, no.
I don't know if that counts, but you
Right.
know, like I said, I think the biggest thing that people want to take away is just how it bungees, you know, a player's
Yeah.
skill is from like this level to this level in matchups or even just in general play to like what could a professional do, right?
And I get that
It gets lost.
as well. Yeah, because a lot of times a lot of people knew about the fireball, or the fireball tech that I would do, or basically go through it, and they would fake fireball and bait me, and I'm like, oh, that is legit neutral. Like that's
Now
the dance
we're doing the
that you're
dance.
talking.
Exactly. Exactly. It's just in a
So-
different. It's just a little bit more complex. I want to say that's kind of how I look at it.
And I want one more thing. I do think what you said about pro, like I think it's definitely like a pro competitor / maybe a intermediate player, maybe even a newer player, that sort of a newer player is getting away with a certain thing because they're doing these they're taking advantage of these mechanics that are working on pro players. You know what I mean? So that could also be a take that is happening. Like somebody could just be hitting Punk with drive rushes constantly and have found like, yo, this is actually working. I'm gonna just keep doing it. And that's where they're like,
that's a neutral skip because you shouldn't be able to beat
shouldn't
him.
be
That's
in
a
my
neutral
face, yo.
skip.
I'm
You're
actually doing
abusing.
something. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry, we spoke over each other, but yeah, I'm actually doing something. Why are you hitting me? Like I don't know. Sorry, Punk.
I had to let your impression out there, but yeah. So it's an interesting talk. It's still ongoing right now. Some of those Twitter feeds have been muted just because it's just been it's a conversation that invokes everybody, so everyone's taking their take into it. But that was just ours. Let us know what you guys think about it. We will have a question up on our Spotify, and of course it'll be posted up on Twitter as well and on our Discord. So you guys, we want to hear from you guys what you think about it, your takes on it. We'll be very, very interested on that.